welcome back. This is Ali.
This is Omar.
And today we have a very special guest.
Hi, I'm Devyn, and I am a Black educator who taught for many years, and I am now out of the classroom, like 9 months out of the classroom, in a campus leadership position. I pretty much am a coach who helps with instructional and classroom management and also student support services.
Devyn,
all the things.
You're an admin now.
I'm not an admin, and I am quick to remind people of that. I'm a leadership. I have many stances when it comes to admin, and I would probably spontaneously combust if I became So leadership, campus leadership.
That's fair. That's
you can
fair.
call me top leadership.
Okay, top leadership.
I mean, I don't have to CC the principal when I send out a directive, but I do check on him before I send it. Maybe sometimes. Occasionally. I don't know.
Well, we're just really excited to have you on because one, you and I have known each other for a long time.
Yeah.
And some of the conversations that we're having about the show feel like they come right out of conversations we've been having for years.
Yes.
But also because I just think it's neat to have like Omar, who has kind of like the Janine perspective, he's starting out.
Yes.
And then me having like the old wizened, like dinosaur one. Right? But you're giving us like a peek behind the curtain.
Yes. I mean, I would hope that I am not our beloved Principal Ava. And that the staff do not, behind my back, say, there goes Ava.
Yeah.
Look at her making Ava moves again. I feel... So are you a Janet or a Melissa as the teacher?
I have been... That's a hard question because, like, I think that's what all of us have been doing watching this show.
Oh yeah,
right. Is like which one am I? Which one am I? Because it's a show like it's a sitcom. It has a short format, so there's like archetypes. But also most of us in the classroom have been multiple of those like at different points, right? Yeah. But like I think like I think I'm a former Janine. I still have streaks of Janine. But I'm an aspiring Barb. Right?
I was definitely a Barb as a teacher.
Yeah.
Like, I'm coming in here, I'm no nonsense, got my crew. Yeah. But I'll interact with everybody else, because Janine is Barb's crew, and that's it. Yeah. But I'm happy to help when needed. I think, as we saw in this latest episode, Barb is tough lessons for sure. Yep. Janine will guide you, kind of.
Well, Janine's like the perky new one. And Barb, Barb and the Italian one.
Melissa is the no-nonsense. You're right. Melissa. So Melissa's who I see myself as. Sorry. Barb, I think, guides you in her mentorship. Melissa's like, you need to learn how to swim through and figures it out. So wait, Omar, out of the newbies, the babies, Janine, our Teach for America young man who likes to refer to Africa often, and our substitute. Which one are you?
Which one are you?
Oh, I'm definitely a Janine. Janine full through. And I have like 2% Barb, but that 2% is just when I get home, like that's it. That's the 2%, you know. But everything else is Janine, definitely for sure. Yes. And I relate to Gregory as well because he's a sub, and I started off as a long-term sub, so I relate there. So Janine and Gregory.
Okay, so we all kind of wrote down some like what we mostly got out of the episode, right? And Omar, why don't we start out with you?
Yeah, of course. So we're discussing the episode about the light bulb, where Janine thinks that she is an electrician and decides to fix the light bulb, which I can relate to, trying to fix my own Promethean board and then just destroying it.
Oh, it happens. You're not the only one.
Well, we also like haven't had heat consistently in the building for like the last 2 weeks.
My entire teaching career, I've been in a school that had heat. This functions like it should.
This week they actually there's like a part in our boiler that broke. but didn't have the part, so they brought space heaters, and then the space heaters blew the fuses. Yep. So that was like a thing that happened this week in real life at our school.
And then because we're in the South, we get to the summer and the air conditioner is not working. And I mean, anyone in education can tell you, children and heat, just summer heat, it's a different level of activity.
That is exactly right. For sure. So this was that episode. It was like the light bulb episode, and it's also an episode where Barb and Gregory go get their nails done.
Yes.
And which is funny.
We are introduced to a little bit of like home life for Janine. Right. We meet her significant other, who's trash.
Yeah, who's trash.
But Melissa, you see that like, I love Melissa's character of like, she's from Philly. She's a Philly girl.
Yes.
And she's connected to the neighborhood. And she is so proud of her roots.
Right.
While also being in this predominantly Black community and still being herself and showing up for the students.
Well, not to put too fine a point on it, like the three of us are sitting in my house in the neighborhood where we all live.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
You know, like that's another like kind of relatable bit to the show. Yes. I think like we live and work like in the communities where we teach. Yeah. Even though we don't all teach at the same school.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
All right. So Omar, now we know which episode. What was your big takeaway when you were watching it?
My big takeaway from this episode boils down to one line that Barb said. Let me say that. So my main takeaway from this episode boils down to one line that Barb said, wherein she said, "You're not the first person to feel things, kid." And that was my whole first semester. Yeah. You're in this new environment and you're like, you see everything that's wrong, because you're new, you're like, y'all work like this? and you think that you can do something, and then you're also in the space of like, oh, I'm new, I can do things, I'm young, I have the energy to,
right? And
you think that it's your job to do those things that other people haven't done, but you realize, you're stuck in this state where it's like you care about the kids, but you fail to realize that everyone does care about these kids, and everyone has seen these things. It's just that, like Barb said, coming to the realization of what they can or cannot do, what's in their power. So that's my big takeaway from that episode.
I think that's interesting because you said you started during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because I think there is a trend of understanding for teachers who've been here for a while of looking to people who started in the pandemic and being like, how are you doing things? Because you guys know nothing but the scramble life of teaching.
Yeah.
Of the... today I'm showing up and I had planned to do this during my planning period and I was going to do this after school, but 10 teachers are out today, so I'm definitely going to have to cover classes. Yeah.
Well,
how am I going to do this?
I mean, something that I just can't stop thinking about is how this show is both like really accurate and like doesn't hesitate to show like rough edges, but it's also idealized. Like it takes place in a non-COVID world.
Oh yeah.
Like if the worst thing, right?
Please don't. I don't want any COVID TV.
But like I just feel like if you're kind of like a civilian person watching this, you're like, oh my goodness, they didn't have a light or this stuff, or like if the worst that had happened in the last 2 weeks was that like the heat didn't work. It actually would have been like a big improvement on like the reality of the last 2 weeks in schools. It would be like all of those teachers were absent. The only one that was left was like the one who like lost her temper and kicked the kid. Yeah. Yes. And stuff. So like
it would have already been in the gym because there would have been one substitute.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's both like watching this episode, I'm like, that's like very accurate of like the infrastructure, the building is falling apart, whatever. But it's also in fact idealized into a world that like that you have not taught in.
I think it's smart for the TV show to have done that though, because everything surrounding education was already a business and political, but then you add in COVID and that would have allowed critics to focus on something that even these writers and us, we're still navigating. Yeah. Right. Maybe they'll have, please don't. Maybe they'll have like a COVID season 5 years from now when we're all, but
hopefully. How things are going.
The deep side there is like you would think that having a TV show that kind of portrays what it's like to teach when the infrastructure of the building is falling apart would be non-controversial, and it absolutely is controversial. I mean, locally in the city where we live, like the local paper ran an op-ed in the last bond election saying that the school district didn't deserve the money because of like literacy scores. And like, you know, I just, the logic of somebody saying like, yeah, your middle schoolers don't deserve to have like heat and air conditioning because the 8-year-olds aren't reading at a level that we want them to is like maddening, you know? But
I tell people all the time when I'm like, watch Abbott Elementary, anybody can watch it. But if you're an educator, and especially you're a recent educator, the last 20, 30 years, you are going to catch the extra layers that are there. And your conversations and who you identify with, and even the way you interact with it as you're watching it happen is going to be vastly different because you're experiencing that in real life, which is these op-eds or these people who are refusing to understand how systems impact student outcomes.
People love to hear boots on the ground anecdotes, and people are very uncomfortable when teachers talk about policy at all.
Yes.
Right. So I think that
we're not supposed to be smart enough to understand policy.
So
we're not supposed to be interested in it.
Yes.
We're supposed to be reading Cat in the Hat.
But I love that the show does this, and I think it's wonderful to like put a human face on like, yeah, you know, like you need like the light bulbs fixed and stuff, whatever. But I also am like, yeah, you literally could not have a show where any of the teachers is like, yep, you know, this is like a state funding problem or this is like this stuff because people just totally shut down when you mention policy and you're a teacher.
And I like that it's happening now where you have this social media connection because an episode will come out. You can go to Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and all these other teachers are like, yep, I had my own light bulb, or I had this. Or I had last year my aunt fiasco.
Right.
Like everybody has theirs, and people are being bombarded with it. Whereas I'd say about 15 years ago, Boston Public came out. And while it was more a drama, and sometimes definitely a little extra and extreme in their plot lines. There wasn't that community that was interconnecting with no admin or no parents or anybody who's saying y'all can't talk about this or I'm uncomfortable. Stop being able to moderate it. Whereas now it's, hey, I'm gonna put this out here. What, you're gonna fire me because I'm just talking about the fact that we're all 110 degrees outside and we're all sitting in here sweating while also trying to learn ABCs.
But like to Omar's point, I do think that it's like it's very interesting to watch. Interesting is the wrong word, but like it did give me some food for thought of like, you know, yes, the message is that like Janine can't fix this by herself, but I think that it's also like one of the most wonderful parts about having young people enter the profession with those fresh eyes of like, well, how many things have I just like gotten used to?
Yeah.
Right? That like, I don't, you know, y'all, I didn't call about the room being cold. It didn't even occur to me that I was like, yeah, well, all right, kids, put on an extra sweater. I guess like we're doing things.
Like, y'all know this building is cold?
Yeah.
I can bring some blankets.
You know, so I think it's also a reminder to me like, well, but there's a lot of value in like somebody noticing with fresh eyes. Like there is a thing that we have all just kind of given up on or adjusted to that is worth complaining about, you know, because of stuff. But I like the thing that really kind of just spoke to me was the mentorship in this episode. And it, like, I actually thought about this so much that I, like, started cooking up with my real life principal a mentorship program that we could do for, like, first and second year, like, teachers of color. Because I am watching it, and before Omar started at our school, I still thought of myself as the generation of like young hotshot teachers, right? But then, like, if you've been teaching long enough that somebody you taught,
if you make it out of that 5-year rotation, you're no longer.
Yes, like, no, you were not the stuff. But like, if somebody that you taught as a 7th grader is now the young hotshot teacher, right?
Yes.
Like, you know, so mentoring is a different role for me. Like I and it's not a formal role that we have in our school, but I'm watching the way Barb is talking to these like newer teachers, and she's so mean and like, what are you wearing in your $5 bra, and like, you know, like very sarcastic of like, oh, did she try counting, right? And so like part of me is like, oh, I would you know, I would hopefully be like much more, you know, encouraging, whatever. But then the other bits, I'm like, oh no, that's probably exactly what I sound like. So like a big thing with me, just as an example, is you know, we teach in Texas, and the only part of our contract that is really, really sacrosanct is lunch. You can't give us kids at lunch.
Teachers get 30 minutes.
Yeah, teachers get
every day.
Yeah, and so it feels like, oh, but you know, during your lunch, it's an extra planning period, or you can this, and I'm really, really, really adamant about like, nope, like your lunchtime is your lunchtime.
If the teacher wants to turn on their cell phone and watch Abbott Elementary,
that they can do that
board during their lunch, they can do that.
But I'm watching Barb talk to Janine. I'm like, I can definitely think of instances where like Omar and I have been at lunch, and like a kid will come, and I'm like, no, and I could see like where from the outside it would seem like, gosh, this teacher's being so harsh or being so whatever, and like really what it is like Barb is trying so hard with Janine and Gregory to like help them not burn out. Yeah, like if you are going to be in this profession for any amount of time, like you have to like protect this time. And like I loved the bit where she like kind of maneuvers Gregory into being at the nail salon and like just kind of tells him matter of factly, like, awkward conversations are a part of this job. Yes, like you just
I feel like we've had the conversation like a carpooling where I'm like, I don't know how to talk to parents, I don't want to talk to parents. But it's just you have to just do it.
And that's I mean, that is a millennial Gen Z teacher thing, is talking to parents. I don't know where this came from, because I'm one of those to quickly, hello, mom, dad, guardian, grandparent, and you're related to the human being that's in front of me right now. Great, let's talk. I think you even hit it on the head when you're talking about her. You have that $5 bra on, or like the comments about what do you have, and Janine, bless her, does wear some things.
The close-up watching on the ladder in her shoes.
Yes. Her personality comes through on her clothes. But I also think she's so direct about it, like you said, burnout, but it's that protectiveness too. Because these are things that people will pick at. Whenever they feel that you are not doing your job to their expectation, even if you're doing your job and excelling and meeting your kids' needs, her clothes are distracting. And I experienced that in my first year teaching. I had somebody who was like, stop wearing all that jewelry. It's distracting. And it was like, oh, but I also know first impressions as a black teacher in a predominantly school black female teacher, and I have all this jewelry on, that's another place where that advice was coming from. So maybe a little hurtful, but like you said, I got years on you, trying to help you go through the hurdles a little quicker.
Right.
The awkward conversations, you were saying that she's helped you, and I interrupted, sorry.
No, I mean, I just relate to that 100% because of that. Yeah, it is awkward, and you just have to put yourself out there. You kind of, as a first year teacher, you're looking for the answer, right? The answer of how to approach this. You know, and I asked, and they're just like, just do it. Like,
this is the part where I felt like, oh, okay, this is a show that centers like black people in like black teachers in a black school talking to black parents, right? And in our school, the school is pretty diverse, but it's a predominantly Latinx population, and Omar and I are Latinx. And I think that like that show does capture the like, you know, when you're talking to a parent who is in the same community, I think that conversation it's like they're difficult to navigate, but I think that like something that I am concerned with a lot of times with even teachers who have had a lot of experience is that people who have kind of like a savior attitude. Yes. They think that they're going to call the parent and then tell the parent how to parent. Yeah. And like, that's not helpful. Yeah. That's not going to be a successful thing. And like what Barb kind of helps Gregory to do is like, it's metaphorical, and the show makes it literal, is that he literally meets her where she's at. Right?
Yes.
Like he
and you even see her expression of, are you my child's teacher? Right here? Okay,
yes. You know, and he's not like talking down to her. He's not and stuff. He's frustrated with her, but he explains like, hey, you know, it's not preschool. Your kid's learning a lot of stuff. And the part of the conversation I found very relatable is that a lot of times, like parents are just not picturing their kid at school. Right. And so sometimes to explain like, hey, this thing is actually causing a lot of stress for your child because if it puts them behind or just whatever, then parents are like, you know, the stuff. But I think that part of the show spoke a lot to me on like, there have been entire years where I was one of only like 2 Spanish-speaking adults, you know? And so like on our campus and like across our city, like sometimes the parent communication piece, it's literally you're speaking a different language, you know? So I like that. Like I said, I felt like it was a metaphor, but that the show kind of like makes, lays it out of like, this is like meeting a parent where they're at, having like a mentor who's like, you know what though, like you and the parent are on the same page, and you just need to kind of suck it up and like communicate a little bit on this, but that it's kind of an intra community thing, which is not to say that like I don't reach out to like white parents or black parents at my school or anything like that. But it's just to say, like, I loved that was like a little window into like, well, that's what a lot of schools in America look like, and it is a thing when the teachers come from the same community as the students.
It makes a difference.
It's
a different way of representation that we don't talk about. We focus so heavily on race and sometimes gender identity and sexuality, but that neighborhood connection of when your students drive past your house or they know that they're going to see you at the local grocery store or even in the park, that makes a difference. I know my students love seeing me out in the community, and I love seeing them too. It's a nice peek outside of, and plus they realize that we don't sleep at the school.
Well, but you just kind of wonder how, like, what it would look like or sound like if Barb was having that kind of conversation with Jacob. Right?
I think Jacob's got to listen.
Yeah.
Because I think there are teachers who are not from the neighborhood, but also who are not of the culture, who navigate well because they're willing to not talk at parents, but have a conversation with parents and learn from that conversation. I mean, the lessons of cultural interaction means that as a teacher, you also have to step back, and best advice I ever had from one of my own special teacher mentors, my mother, was when you're talking to a parent, this is their most precious gift.
Yep.
And however you talk about their child, know that you are talking about their love. And even if you are thinking you're talking to a parent who is not parenting right, not doing right by their child, you got to navigate it in mind with, as far as they know, they're doing right. And like you said, they don't imagine what it is at school. I hope that the show, let me say that, explores the dynamic of Jacob way more. Yeah. I know that the conversation with
Janine.
No, the substitute.
Gregory. Who's adorable.
I'm loving the conversation of having that strong male influence. Yeah. That episode where they give him all the drawings is so...
It's so cute, but I'm going to say something. And that is, and Omar has heard me say this many times, parents react to men teachers. They cut a lot of slack to
they're just happy they're there. Right? It's the societal, though, of where dads babysit. They don't... parents.
Like, there is literally a whole episode about Janine with the rug, and like you can't picture Gregory, right? Oh yeah. Like Greg, like the bare minimum for Gregory is like put something on the walls, right? Yes. Whereas like Janine is like, I'm gonna mobilize the whole set to get like the room. Yes. So like, no, I love Gregory as a character, But that
that's why I love the show, the layers, because you caught on to that as a teacher of the fact that we'll walk into male classrooms and, hey, so you're a coach because I see you have the ball representing your sport present on your desk.
Right.
What else? What subject do you teach by chance? Because I don't see it represented anywhere in your room.
Just like the expectations they're just flat out not the same.
No.
You know?
Yeah. But, and I have even seen it from my point of view where I see that, you know, all of my coworkers in the same grade are all female, women, Women are all women. all of my colleagues in the same grade are all women, and I'm the only man. And even just with they reach out to a parent, the response they get completely different from what I get. Yeah. And I've been a teacher less than a year, you know, and I see that, and it's just
it's so different.
It's a thing. It's a thing. Yeah. I want to touch on one, or I want to push a little bit on one point on because we've mentioned it, but Jacob and kind of his cultural fluency. Because I think what you were saying was interesting because you made a distinction about the neighborhood. But it's not that if you're a white teacher you can't navigate these spaces yourself, because there's this really great little snippet of a moment where Jacob doesn't want to go to the sandwich place because they call him white boy. Yeah. And Janine is trying to explain they mean that affectionately. And then the person that she says to the teacher's lounge is Melissa. Tell him. They just mean it affectionately. In other words, Melissa kind of gets it enough to translate, translate this.
Which I think is, I mean, you have to, as a teacher, figure out who your teacher community is on campus and your community for yourself. I think that we know that it shouldn't be Melissa's place to have to teach Jacob how he's going to be a white teacher in this Black community. But we also recognize that Melissa has navigated it well. She has these. She's been teaching for a long time.
Exactly.
And so she is going to be the best person for him.
But I think it's listen to her. Yeah, he's got to listen to her. But I think I just wanted to clarify that on my end, because sometimes what people hear is so I'm a Mexican teacher, I can only teach Mexican students. And it's no, but you're it is totally possible to engage with the community and be comfortable and be a good resource for your students, all this stuff. But you got to go with an open heart, and you got to go with a willingness to learn.
Yeah, and Devyn said, you have to listen. You can't just be talking the whole time. You gotta listen.
Yeah. Right. Which even with parents, sometimes you'll get on the phone with a parent and they're like, everything you're saying I know and more because I live with this person. So if you could just be my vent, because no one else is going to still love my child or support my child, but also recognizing the growth areas that my child has, however extreme they are.
I think it is important to note that you're at a high school and Omar and I are at a middle school, and the show is about an elementary school.
I know, which I've taught at all levels.
I always forget that.
Yeah, elementary, middle school, high school. I have mentored teachers for all levels. I've run a program at all levels. Yeah. And I always say elementary teachers are so the ones that we have to look to for learning. Yeah. Because they got to know everything, but their classroom management skills are amazing. They're always on top of research well before high school teachers.
Shout out to Barb in the first episode where Janine's where's your class? And she's outside in a single file line.
Yes. Quiet. Yes. Yeah. And I mean, but the Barbs, like you said, they have such wisdom. They've been doing it long enough. And you kind of pointed out, Omar, she's not the first one to see it when she's talking to Janine. But Barb, I think, is realizing, we're seeing in her character development, it's been a while since there's been some new young teachers who have the possibility of staying, and she wants really to invest in them and make them feel that they got somebody at least there for them.
And it's summarized beautifully at the very end when Janine asked her how do you feel, Barbara, or Janine asked Melissa, how do you and Barb how do you and Barbara stop yourself from caring too much, right? And then Barb says, because it's the complete opposite. Like, we want to stay here. We don't want to burn out.
Right.
And that's what they're doing for Janine, because they see that she cares. They don't want her to burn out.
Oh, yeah.
That whole episode, I wanted to, like, take Janine home and, like, pack her in cotton.
Which she would have appreciated. She would have gotten a meal, because she hadn't eaten all day.
Had not eaten.
She wouldn't have to fight about bills with her little boyfriend.
Yes.
And she would have needed also, because he took the car and then had to go do his thing. Yes, didn't have gas.
Well, but I just really, you know, we take new teachers and just chew them up and spit them out.
I mean, all these national surveys with the year, right? The 3, 4... At the start of this year with the teacher, I had the conversation of moving into your third year. So that is why you are now having these types of questions to admin and concerns and feeling this way, because you've been around long enough to see that not only is the system flawed, but there's just only so many times you can plug the hole in the boat, especially when there's so many holes. And I think that these surveys keep telling us, I don't have enough support, I don't have mentorship, I don't know how to navigate, and not enough campuses have enough Barbs and Melissas, who have their different ways, but are also willing to say, not only am I going to teach the little bodies that are in my room, I'm going to teach the big bodies next door so that they can move into their little bodies.
And sometimes it's not even, like, teaching the like, because Omar, you know so much more about technology than me, than like 99% of the faculty, whatever. Like, there are some like very practical, real things that you come in with like a lot of knowledge or stuff. So it's not a matter of like, oh, you know, like new teachers need more mentorship because you need somebody to like explain all of this stuff. But it's the like something that I received a lot when I was a new teacher is I felt like I had a lot of encouragement.
Yes, encouragement. Right. Navigating the nuance.
Yes. Of like when you are like, oh my gosh, this is so intimidating to call a parent, or like Mary yelled at me, or, you know, I just for the life of me could not get this class to pay attention. Right. For somebody to normalize that a little bit better of like, yeah, no, that happens. Like that happens to the best of us. It's like a thing. And also like, you know, here, you know, like encourage you to stuff. And Devyn, you were talking about
so what stood out for me was definitely the point of not only can you not bring your home life to work when you are in such an intense work environment, which is education, public education, and public education at schools of need. Right. Every school has their thing, but when you are somebody who brings in your home life to a place where everybody's home life is chaotic, you're going to have issues. And so I love the message of you got to take care of that. Because we saw that. That's what Barb is doing. That's what Melissa's doing when they're like, no, this is your off time. This is break. Go do your break. But they're also separating it. I think in one episode we even like hear Barb make the message of like, nope, we don't talk about my life or my husband or something. Like it's very direct, but she draws like that line.
Well, what was the thing you were saying about the fish?
The fish. Oh, Melissa. Yeah. That's right. And I love that because that is very much teachers, especially old school teachers who are trying to like navigate it. I'm going to come to school, but I have a life after. And Melissa brings that fish to school because she is about to beat her sister-in-law.
And look cuter.
Right. Yes, and look cuter. And have the best recipe. Yeah. And here comes Janine messing up the electricity in the building and is going to throw it off. But Melissa is just, she's figured out a way to say, I can show up for my kids and then I can have a good time in the evening. I have to go home and grade all the papers and lesson plan all evening. Barb can get her nails done and take those moments of relaxation. And I love that they're modeling that for the other teachers, especially because going back to that, Janine is a natural teacher. Any teacher, anybody in education, you look at Janine's character is going to be a natural teacher. Gregory's character is a natural teacher, but he is not, this isn't the first choice. And we see that all the time in education. And then you've got Ernest Save the World Jacob, and who is not a natural teacher, but wants to teach so bad. Right. And those all require different things. And I think in this episode, you saw all of them really looking at what is me? Who am I as a teacher? And what does it look like when I show up for my students fully and my coworkers fully? And it's so, I mean, navigating that, and we're seeing it especially now.
Well, see,
you've got to take care of yourself.
I guess, like, number one, watching her have those interactions with boyfriends. And this is, like, a really personal thing, but I would say, like, the number one way in which, like, teaching as a profession has affected my personal life is that I have found a capacity for patience for kids that I never, like, I would never have characterized myself as, like, a patient person before. Okay. But I've taught middle school for a zillion years. And, like, you learn patience, right? Yeah. But it's like I have a finite amount, and because it's maxed out at work, I don't have the capacity anymore for adults that act like middle schoolers.
Yeah. There's that.
Like, I can deal with a middle schooler who acts like a middle schooler, but like, in my personal life and my dating life and my friendships, like, if you act like a middle schooler, like, I literally feel like I'm at work. So, like, I'm watching that, and I'm like, oh, Janine, that is not going to last long, because, like, you know, because she spends all day giving and giving and giving and giving and giving and giving,
and like, her partner is a taker.
Yes, her partner is a taker, you know, and so, like, okay, so that was like a little painful for me to watch, of like, that is a way, like, you can see how she ended up with him, and then you can also see, because she's a giver, right? And then you can also see, like, oh, that's exactly the wrong kind of person for a giver to be with.
Oh yeah, you know? I do love this, I guess, budding storyline of Gregory being interested in her.
Yes.
He's adorable.
I absolutely adore it, and I think that it's something that people forget about happens often, is that you end up just marrying a fellow teacher and y'all being broke together. And coming to school together, hey, you save on gas and all those things. There are many schools that have my parents taught at the same school for a couple of years together.
I definitely feel like there's a bit of hypocrisy in me being like, oh yeah, I'm going to be such a good mentor. I'm like going to be so protective, whatever. You have to have like a work-life balance or whatever. Like, I don't have clean clothes right now. You know, like the last 2 weeks of work have been so brutal with absences and COVID and the stuff and whatever, and just trying to keep it together at work, that, like, the stuff just accumulates in my personal life. So I've been at it for a long time, and I still, watching that show, needed to hear that message.
Yes.
Of Barb, whatever, like, you know, you just have to, like, take care of yourself and do all this stuff. And so I want to, like, give that message, but I need to hear.
And I think,
message.
I mean, for me as a first year teacher, especially right now with the pandemic, where I feel like that is the number one message for teachers. Like, take care of, like, you know, because there's a shortage and there's not that many of us, and, you know, take care of yourself so you can last. And there's also the navigating that with also being a first year teacher and all the rest of the senior staff being like, oh, it won't last long, or, you know, there's that sentiment of like, oh, 2 years. So you're like, I want to prove to you that I will last longer, that I am a good teacher, but part of that will also turn off your lights, or, like, you know, all the electricity will go off in the the navigating that is also, because, like you said, the boundaries is an important part. So as a first year teacher, I have had to set my boundaries. And I have senior teachers that are like, you know, that's a good thing that you're doing that. It's hard for us. It took me forever.
Especially because you're coming from a generation where that's a thing.
A thing. It is a thing.
And we're coming from a generation where predominantly it wasn't.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
I will say, coming into teaching, one of, again, parental advice from a great mentor teacher, my father, was he takes off at least once a semester a day, and he's an athletic director, so he's gonna stay home and watch football all day. My mom will usually, that'll be her, like, full spa day. Like, they do these things, and it started as educators because the burnout. And I mean, they were the type of educators that, like, students were always in our homes, their families. There was very blurry lines. And that's advice that I give new teachers. Pick all of my brand new to the profession teachers this year. Please go through, and for every 6 weeks, pick at least one day where you're just going to be at home. No contact with us at school, and taking a break, because I mean, oh, perfect timing. I remember, gosh, was it last year in the spring? Yeah, we were home for Easter. And my mother got a phone call at her level and position of, our nurse has just passed. And she called the family. I'm so sorry. She then called her secretary to make sure that they got the family cards and flowers. And then she called the principal and was like, here are 3 people that are going to be able to come in, pick from one of these. It'll be your new campus nurse. Because they have to replace us.
Right.
And take care of you. You do not let this school that is going to replace you, when you burn out, you quit, or you pass, be all of it that it ever was. There's so much more to you. And the kids love that even.
Yeah.
How many great conversations have both of you had with your students that had to do with your travels or your art or your appreciations outside of school?
I guess like to give a window to, because we're like making these references to like Abbott world is not COVID world. Right. But just to give like a little snippet is, I this week had, this week was not so bad. Last week was apocalyptic.
Yeah, the week before was the worst, I think, numbers wise.
Right.
Most campuses across the nation had 20, 30 out.
We were at like 30%, 40% absences, and it didn't feel bad every day. But then there are these moments that I think about now.
Probably because you had half the student body there only.
Well, so I'm going to share one, right? Just as like a snippet for somebody, because I think that this is an instance of like, the 3 of us have been in schools and we know exactly what it's like. But like, if you're listening out there and you're not working in a school, this is just like a little snippet. I'm in the library. The librarian is absent, and I'm the English teacher. So I just take all of my classes to the libraries, and we're going to read and have reading conferences, which is not disruptive because that's what I usually do, except I'm doing the reading conferences and also like checking books in and out of the library, right? So like covering it, okay, not so bad. The phone rings, and it's the school nurse, and she doesn't even say hello. Like, she just, like, runs right into, I'm so overwhelmed. I hate to ask you, but can you please help me with, like, all the contact tracing phone calls? Because, like, any contact tracing phone calls, they go through the school nurse. And so she's just, like, overwhelmed. And when I finally got a word in edgewise, I'm having to explain, like, well, you're not talking to the librarian. You're talking to the English teacher who is also covering for the librarian. Right. And so it's that sort of like that we just had a run of everybody is doing some kind of double duty.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like, I can do the double duty, but also really what's needed is for me to like do the double duty and then also help this. And so and we're just all of us are having a hard time even helping each other because we're all stretched like past our capacity, so like that's like just a practical bit of what it's been like, this winter, in schools. But like to your point about like travel, whatever, I guess my boundary has always been pretty imperfect because I tend in the school year to like, I have a really hard time taking a day off. Like that's my Janine bit is that I just like 1,000%, but mine is like, but when I'm not at school, I am absolutely not at school.
Yeah.
Right. Like I don't do professional development. I don't know this stuff. And like, not just at this job, but a lot of jobs you have the Olympics of trying to outdo each other on like who's working the hardest outside of school. And like social media, teachers get extremely competitive on like the way that they react to like the general contempt that the public has for public school teachers is to say like, well, you have no idea the hours that we work. Right. And so that stuff. And then you step back and realize like, well, hold on a minute. I actually don't want to win that argument by working like 80 hours a week. This doesn't benefit anyone, like,
Yes.
So, Well, so
I think that, just touching on what, I think that also this episode does a great job of showing the relationships of the staff. And I love, and I said this earlier, the fact that most schools, if not all public schools for sure, are being held together by a head custodian with like some WD-40 and a system and a prayer.
100%.
And they really are. They make it work on days that it shouldn't work. They're your people who they at least explain to you when you're like, hey, it's been 2 weeks and it's 30 degrees outside and about 26 in my classroom. And they're going to explain to you, I put the order in. Here's what's happening. I apologize, but let me find that space here for you. Or do you want me to see if when it's hot outside, we can find some fans, get a system set up? They're advocating in different ways. And we see it with the teachers when they get in the gym together, when they're outside just watching the kids have fun and having their community. But even with how we see in a few episodes beforehand, I think it's the first episode, where the principal, Ava, is kind of coming for Janine, and the two older ones cut that off real quick. And then everybody else follows suit. And I think that's really important in setting the boundaries and making sure you're taking care of yourself, is because that custodian said, I'm going on my fishing trip. Don't touch anything while I'm gone. And she did not respect his boundary. And she touched it. And there, again, that ripple effect, if you don't take care of, you're going to bring it in, and then it's going to have way, way worse impact than just that one little light bulb.
There, I feel like a TV land thing that happened that wouldn't actually happen is when the custodian is like subbing for the class. But like a real life thing that happens is,
I mean, but how often have we actually looked in the cafeteria and been like, no one's on duty, but who's supposed to be on duty?
Who's supposed to be on duty? But like a real life thing that happened is, the night custodian this year. You remember this, Omar? He and Omar actually helped me for 2 hours after school to put together the room for my special like poetry event, my Edgar Allan Poe thing, and so like. That is a very, very real thing. That, like, the custodians, the cafeteria staff, they're really invested in the kids. They know the kids. They know my name.
This year for my birthday, our head custodian went and got me a full Mexican dinner. And when I walked into my office, it was, like, spread out on my desk. Just the community that you develop. And who shows up for you is very surprising. I love this show. I truly enjoy it, and I love the conversation around it.
No, that's a great show. Well, Devyn, thank you so much for like coming out and chatting with us.
Thank you for having me.
This won't be the last time, hopefully.
Absolutely not. I look forward to joining y'all many times in the future. Thank you.
All right, guys. See you next time.